Well, welcome to our Wednesday podcast. Our topic for today is space to feel. And our previous topic discussed identifying different emotions. So I'm hoping that you can take some of those emotions and apply them to an exercise that we'll do today. But looking at this first slide, we have...
Hey, Sarah, I'm sorry to stop you. We're doing great, you guys. This is like all the regular stuff. The audio is a little bit scratchy. Is it coming out scratchy for you guys too?
Not for me. What can I do to make it not scratchy? Because I'm in a quiet place. I have my audio plugged into my ears. Would it make a difference if I...
Yeah, let's try unplugging it and seeing if that makes a difference. It normally makes it worse, but who's to say?
Okay. Does that make any difference?
Yes, it's better.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess start over. Take two.
Take two.
Okay. So welcome to Wednesday's podcast. Our topic for today, we're focusing on space to feel. On Tuesday, we took a look at identifying different emotions, and I hope that you can carry over some of those emotions that you were able to identify within yourself. Now, looking at this first slide, we have this open ocean. It's got some waves. It has clouds you can see off in the distance. With us discussing space to feel, I want you to think of that ocean as the emotions that you had previously identified. And your waves may look different. They may look like the ones in this picture, and that's okay. But I just want you to keep that in mind of thinking about how an ocean is wide and deep and takes up lots of space. And today we're going to give ourselves some space to feel some of those emotions that you previously identified. So looking into some of the things I wanted to bring forth for us to discuss, some of the things were acknowledging those feelings that you had previously put a name to, acknowledging that label or acknowledging how they affect your body, and what changes there might be, and being okay with some of those changes. To acknowledge means to accept or admit the existence or truth of those feelings. And so just knowing that they're there. And within the song lyrics that I have beside it, you may have heard of the song Hand in My Pocket. It kind of does that within the verse. It has just a layout of feelings, of different types of feelings. Some of them are mixed, some of them are varied, and it's okay to have multiple ones and acknowledge that you have multiple ones as well. The next topic I wanted to bring forth was normalization of those feelings. That's the process of bringing or returning something to a normal condition or state. And through some of the lyrics that we'll see, we can strive some normalization that we'll talk about. And then the final one will be talking about strategies for self-validation. So just to start off today, I wanted to play through a little bit of this song, and you can listen to some of the emotions that it lists off, as well as some of the phrases that you hear within the chorus. And then we'll kind of talk about the meaning behind those. I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm short, but I'm healthy, yeah. I'm high, but I'm grounded. I'm sane, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm lost, but I'm hopeful, baby. What it all comes down to is that everything's gonna be fine, fine, fine. I've got one hand in my pocket, and the other one is giving a high five. So that's just a taste of some of the lyrics in that song. If you notice, it lists off feelings that are mixed. It says broke, but I'm happy, poor, but kind. And it's normal to feel a mixture of those feelings. Some phrases that kind of acknowledge normalization are that you may not be the only one who feels this way. You may be high but grounded, sane but overwhelmed. And that it's typical that if someone feels certain ways, it may have a response, the body may have a response, like nerves, you may sweat or you may be restless. And those are some ways that you can normalize some of these feelings. Another way is a statement that says, I'm not alone in feeling this way. Those are some ways that you can kind of remind yourself that it's okay to feel that way and others may feel that way. So looking into some forms of self-validation, we're gonna, in the next slide, we'll look at some strategies for that. I wanted to point out in the chorus of this song, it has that underlined phrase. It says that everything's gonna be fine, fine, fine. And that is actually a phrase that you might wanna avoid when you're self-validating, at least in the beginning. Because this is a form of minimizing, almost dismissing your feelings in that moment. Because it says everything's going to be fine. It doesn't really acknowledge it. It's kind of a quick Band-Aid that we often want to tell ourselves or tell others that we love. And even though this phrase may be said with good intention, it ultimately kind of dismisses and pushes those feelings aside through that quick Band-Aid. So I wanted us to talk about self-validation phrases that may be a little more effective in acknowledging and normalizing these feelings that we may be having at this time. So things to avoid moving into this next slide: statements that may minimize, dismiss, have forms of judgment, blaming, or denial within them. So moving on, we might change a couple of these lyrics. And so I had some blanks here. So some of those emotions that you may have previously identified in the earlier podcast, you might think of plugging those into these blanks here where it says, I'm blank, but I'm blank. And you may only fill in one or two of these. And that's okay. You may fill up all of those blanks, and that's also fine. I put the option of saying and or but because some of us may have opposite or contradicting feelings. And I also put the word and because we may have multiple ones, and that is just fine to fill in there. The one that I wanted to focus on for moving forth after acknowledging and normalizing these emotions that you may be feeling is to have a self-validation statement. And I left a little blank there at the bottom. And an example that is used later on in this song actually says, let's see, it says, and what it all boils down to is that no one's really got it figured out just yet. I got one hand in my pocket and the other one is playing a piano. So the phrase that it uses is that no one's really got it figured out just yet. I see that one as an appropriate statement of a self-validation statement for yourself. And it doesn't necessarily serve as a Band-Aid because it's acknowledging that maybe you could be feeling confused or not sure of what to do or out of control. And this kind of rephrases that and summarizes what those feelings could be. So on this slide, I have a couple of other self-validation phrases that could serve as an example to get your brainstorming going on which ones resonate with you. So it has, it's just fine not to have it figured out just yet is that lyric. But another one is I am human and these are human feelings. That's another form of normalization. And it also says this is a blank time and it's okay for me to feel this way in this moment. So focusing more on the present rather than the future where you're saying, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be all okay. Those are some of the dismissing, minimizing self-validation statements. So try to strive to focus on statements that acknowledge the present. And so I challenge you to come up with one of these. You can steal one of them that's listed on the slide and fill it in that blank. Or maybe you have one that you've been using yourself, or that you've heard someone use before that was validating to you. And I challenge you to use these statements on yourself as well as with others around you. This is kind of for me, I think of it as giving grace. These statements are a way of giving grace to yourself and giving grace to others around you. And they can help with that element of acknowledging, normalizing, and validating these different emotions that you might be having at this time. So thank you for joining me in this exercise, and I encourage you to fill in those blanks, and you can leave some of them blank, you can fill some of them in, that's just fine. But overall, I'm hoping that you can find use of these different self-validation techniques within your everyday life.
Thank you, Sarah, so much.